Hello there. This is a video about my experiences with Asperger's syndrome, both good and bad. I'll start at the beginning. I was diagnosed at age 14, and that was a tough time for me. Obviously, being a teenager, you can imagine that you're going through puberty and then you find out that you're different. And at the time it wasn't very well known, and so I did face some difficulties with it. For me personally, I found it was a difficult thing about getting a sense of identity. Yeah. Throughout my life, I have had to deal with people, both good and bad, and you do get a lot of prejudice, and that is unfortunate. People seem to think that you're a psychopath, that you're mentally retarded, or other such things, and it is sad, and it's a fact of life, unfortunately, that you will get ignorant people in your life. You just can't avoid them, and I've seen that in all areas. Some of these areas people should know better, and it's really shouldn't be acceptable, but there it is. Just thinking about how I deal with it on a day-to-day basis, I tend to avoid people because it is quite exhausting being around people, because there are rules, there are things that you just don't understand, and you've got to be in a way that doesn't feel natural to you. On the other hand, it is extremely lonely. And you do get, and I get quite a serious amount of anxiety over nothing sometimes. It's ridiculous. There are many aspects to the condition that you have to deal with it. I mean, when I'm talking to somebody, for example, you're subconsciously trying to think about what you've got to say to that person. You've also got to think about eye contact, looking at studying their body language, what the right subjects are, if it's safe to talk about anything that you're familiar with. Those things are running through your head every time I have a conversation with somebody. With people I've got to know, it's a lot more relaxing, because then you can start being yourself a bit more, because obviously they know and they can be quite kind and nice. But still, if you're, say, obsessed with like Star Wars, for example, and the person that you're talking to has no interest in Star Wars, if you start going on about it, their attention's going to go, and it's going to be a waste of time talking with them, and it's going to be hard work. So you have to try and engage people on a personal level. Oftentimes, how I deal with these things is I do try to gain familiar ground with anybody. If you're talking to somebody, if you've got familiar ground and you kind of know what they're talking about, and you're on that same wavelength, then it's a bit easier, you know. If your main subject's like cars or something like that, and you both know about cars, it's going to be an easier conversation. Now, I said I was diagnosed when I was about 14, and that was about 24 years ago. So about 1994, and yes, that was more or less the early days where people were getting diagnosed. I'm not. One of the myths about autism and Asperger's is that people are like Rain Man. That definitely is not true. There are people that have got some abilities, but as far as I know, most of the people that I've met with Asperger's and autism aren't amazingly specially gifted in areas. They are a lot, however, are very intelligent, which is true. Some will know. I think it's just relative, really, because if you're obsessed with something and you're focused on that subject, you're going to know a lot more than the average person is. So, if I was obsessed with computers, I would learn everything there is to know about computers. It's that simple. So, intelligence, I would say, is relative. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've met quite a few people with Asperger's and autism, online and in person, and most are very all different. I would say, quite honestly, some can be really horrible people. I mean, really nasty and unpleasant human beings. Some can be as nice as pie. It is just dependent on the individual. Do not think for a moment that if you've got Asperger's syndrome or autism, that when you meet somebody else with Asperger's, that you're going to get this amazing kind of revelation that person connects with you on a whole different level. It doesn't happen. At least not what I've experienced yet. You'll find it yourself being familiar with it, but you can also find yourself being impatient with the individual. Per se. You can be quite critical of your own faults and you're working to improve them. If that person has the exact same faults, you're going to find yourself being less and less patient with that person because of them having the same faults, because it's frustrating because you know full well of how you're dealing with those faults. So that's a difficult thing to deal with at times. Some people say, "Oh yes, I'm higher functioning, but etc., etc." You know, it really does depend. I can say, in my honest truth, that I have never had any actual professional help, as in like being taught social skills or anything like that, and so I've had to more or less feel my way through it. I would describe it like trying to find a light switch in a darkened room. It is a lot like that. It's a lot of trial and error. You make a lot of mistakes. You feel lonely. You do feel quite low. You get angry with yourself. You get frustrated. There are many things. Yeah. I'd say there are positive aspects to the condition. Believe it or not, I would say that I'm a good judge of people, and that sounds a bit of a strange thing coming from someone with Asperger's or autism. Now, the reason why I say that is because over time you learn to read people better, because you're actively paying attention to their body language, you're actively paying attention to them, and you're watching. I find you start learning things about people when you really stop and listen. When you stand outside the group on the fringes, you're listening to everything that you're saying, about the way they're talking, what they're talking about. And so, on many occasions, I mean, you can get what you call the measure of a person. You can figure them out, you know. And in some ways, if you tell somebody straight away, a person how they reacts to you as as a person with autism or a disability in general, if they're acting horrible, they are a really horrible person. And the fake people can be really nice to everybody else that they don't have to make an effort with. But if they have to be around somebody like you, like myself, that they have to make an effort with, they kind of show their true colours very quickly. And they do often show what they are really like in general. I would say that I am reasonably intelligent. I wouldn't say I'm Einstein level intelligence. I'm not like a super genius, etc. However, when I look at complex sciences, I'm fascinated by parallel reality, string theory, and things like that, which I'm not going to bother going into detail, but I'm fascinated about by it, and I can certainly understand what the scientists are talking about. That is just me personally. I mean, for example, I probably could be it. Some people with Aspergers can be quite good mathematicians, etc., because they have an interest in maths. If you don't, it's that simple that you just will not probably be all that good at it because of the because of you not being obsessed with it. I can learn reasonably quick on the things I want to learn. In fact, I can retain a lot. The way I would describe this is I can learn a lot of we call static information, like as in like facts and figures. I can read about the history of Rome and recall it quite easily. Social information is a lot more difficult. So trying to remember somebody's name, trying to remember the details about somebody, unless they've made a real impact, then it's sometimes when I meet them again, it's almost like a blank slate. That's almost exactly what it's like sometimes. Yeah, I mean, the main thing I find that's difficult to deal with is the loneliness. You feel that you definitely feel the sense of loneliness there. It's like a void within you almost. Now, honestly, I've never been in a romantic relationship, so I don't know if you have that special connection with somebody or whatever. But generally, around my friends, family, everybody, even people that you are close to, you still feel that kind of distance, that feeling of loneliness. Also, I want to talk about the sensory issues. This is one of the common things people with autism and Asperger's do face, and I do have that. There are a few things like when I go down to a beach, my sense is go crazy. I do not like going down to the beach, mainly because I cannot bear the feel of salt in the air. I cannot stand sand. There's a lot of things plus the sunburn on my skin is horrendous, and it's not a pleasant feeling for me. My sense of hearing can be quite bad at times, as in if really loud noises go off. I'd say it feels almost like it hurts. Literally, it feels like a pain, like a stabbing pain sometimes. I can hear a pin drop in the house at times when I'm on my own, etc. Things like that happen a bit. I've got a strong sense of touch, and generally I avoid touching people at all. It's very powerful, and it's just I find it too intense. So if I was greeting somebody, I would know the social conventions of just shaking a hand or anything. But anything closer than that, hugs or anything, I really do squirm and not really like it. However, that rule does change when it comes to me being attracted to a girl. For example, if a girl I'm attracted to hugs me or tries to kiss me or whatever, even though it's a very, very intense feeling, it's actually it's a very pleasant feeling as well. But I have to feel a connection with them. You know, it's not just, I meet you off the street. That's the thing, you have to get to, if I feel relaxed around somebody, touch is a bit easier. But I don't hug my mum. I avoid touch a lot of the time. Like I say, there are people that are got Aspergers, and they'll go on the media and they'll be what you call socially acceptable. And what I mean is people whose face fits. Mine doesn't. I really do not care what people think. I will say I'll tell you the truth and tell you how it is. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it's good to have Aspergers at times, because the truth is, I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me. There is a lot of times where it really isn't a good thing to have it. And there are times where I guarantee you will feel, if you have this condition like I do, you will know that you can feel pretty awful, pretty depressed. There's a lot of bad emotions that you can have. That's the truth of the matter. I'm not saying it's all bad, but I'm not saying it's all good either. It's kind of in the middle. I'd say it's, for me, I'm in between. I'm not so bad I'm fully autistic, so I'm not aware of people, but I'm not fully so-called normal either. And because of that, you feel in this in-between gap where you're not understood, and it's difficult because you're aware of who you are. You're aware of the social circumstances. You feel lonely. You want to connect with people, but it's very hard to do so. Yeah. I'm not sure if I've explained things well enough here. But anyway, drop me a comment. Tell me what you guys think, and I will see you later. Thank you very much.